So this is the site of the Battle of BRYN GLAS, or the Battle of PILLETH. This is generally agreed where the battle took place. Just see the church just there poking through the trees. That's where the Welsh forces were considered to have been, at the top of the mountain there. These three trees here, we'll talk about those later because they've got significance to the battle as well. Yeah, so it would have been quite a daunting view for the English army as they marched along here, and they first set their eyes on the Welsh soldiers at the top of the mountain there. I mean, I guess there probably wasn't that many Welsh soldiers, so I presume that's the reason they probably thought it would be a good idea to march up a steep hill prior to their attack. So just having a look around, the church is to my left, and there's an information sign here which I'm going to go and have a look at. So here's the information sign about the Battle of PILLETH, or the Battle of BRYN GLAS. And it's interesting that on this information sign here, they state that Mortimer's force, the English force, was around 2,000, and 800 were killed. I'm just looking, they haven't got the numbers actually for Glyndwr's forces, the Welsh forces. And what's interesting as well about this information board, you can actually see, I presume, this is the church to my left here. So I presume this is the church depicted in this painting, depicting the battle. So as far as I understand from what I've read, and also what the information sign here has just told me, the English were to our right, down the bottom here, the forces of Sir Edmund Mortimer, the leader of the English, and to my left, up here beyond the church, that's where the Welsh bowmen were. That's where the Welsh positioned their forces. So I'm just going to make my way up to the church now, and if possible, I'm going to try and get behind the church to the mountain where the Welsh archers were, the Welsh bowmen, who played such a decisive part in the battle. That's where Owain Glyndŵr, or whoever the Welsh commander was here, positioned his forces. Of course, Owain Glyndŵr had previously fought alongside the English, so he probably had a good idea what the English tactics would be, and he adjusted his tactics accordingly. But bear in mind, I'm not a historian. I don't claim to be a historian, so I might not get everything right. But and if I get anything wrong, please let me know. Just put a comment and just correct me where I go wrong. So just in the church grounds now. Some really nice views here. Beautiful scenery. The church, I believe, predated the Battle of BRYN GLAS. You can just see there up on the, I think that's the high ground there where the Welsh archers must have been. There's actually a tractor up there at the moment. I might try and get up there later if I can. So you can see that the Welsh forces had a massive advantage, even though they were outnumbered, possibly 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, depending which accounts you listen to. I think the rate of fire for a Welsh bowman was between 8 and 12 arrows every minute. So you have hundreds of archers there firing the arrows down on the English soldiers as they made their way up. An interesting point about the battle is that there was actually Welsh bowmen on both sides. The English army had Welsh bowmen as well. So I presume the Welsh bowmen would have stayed here at the bottom somewhere and fired arrows up at their fellow Welshmen on the other side, while the actual English infantry, if you like, I'm not sure if they were called infantry back then, probably not, but the English men-at-arms went up to try and close the distance to actually fight the Welsh. This little stone has been laid here to remember those who fell in this battle. It reads, if you can't read it, "May all who fell in the Battle of PILLETH, 1402, rest in peace." And it's got the flag there of Owain Glyndŵr as well. That's his battle flag we used to march into battle under. Got great views from here. See all the way down the hill. You can just imagine how difficult it must have been for the English forces having to march up here under a hail of arrows falling down on their heads. So I'm actually trying to walk up the mountain to where the Welsh forces would have been on the day of the Battle of PILLETH, or the Battle of BRYN GLAS. And is tiring. I can't imagine how difficult it would have been for the English forces. I'm going to climb up this steep hill, a relatively steep hill, while having arrows fired down on their heads. I'm almost at the top of the hill behind the church now. This is the area where the Welsh bowmen positioned themselves prior to the battle, and the English soldiers had to fight their way up this hill under a hail of arrows. I mean, this is an absolutely amazing position. You can see why the Welsh forces positioned themselves here. I mean, they had the high ground, which when you're firing bows and arrows gives you a huge advantage, especially when the Welsh bowmen were possibly the best bowmen in the world. So the Welsh had the high ground, the English had the advantage in numbers, but Owain Glyndŵr, he had one more trick up his sleeve. You can just imagine the Welsh bowmen who were able to fire between 8 and 12 arrows a minute, firing the arrows up into the sky and then dropping them down onto the heads of the English soldiers as they struggled to climb this mountain with all their body armour, their equipment, their swords, axes, whatever else they used. So as you can see, just looking out over the valley here, looking down on the church, I mean, this is a brilliant, brilliant tactical position for the forces of Owain Glyndŵr to position themselves. They had a brilliant view of all around them. They had 180-degree view here. They could probably see any enemy forces approaching them. They had the advantage of height. Any force that was going to attack them would have to come up this steep hill. And Glyndŵr, of course, he had one more trick up his sleeve for the English. What he'd actually done, he'd actually split his forces into two. He had one group of soldiers here at the top of the hill, the bowmen, firing arrows down on the English, and then he had another group of soldiers hiding in the trees, in the bushes, to my left-hand side, I think it was, from the reports I've read. And then as the English approached up this hill in front of me, when they started to get close to the Welsh bowmen, to the English infantry, it was then at that point that the second Welsh army attacked the English from behind and from their right flank, which would be my left-hand side as I look at it here now. And then the English were just caught in the middle. And then to make things even worse for the English, the Welsh bowmen who had started the battle on the English side, because the English had Welsh bowmen in their army as well, those Welsh bowmen, and nobody knows why, we don't know if it was a pre-arranged tactic or whether they just decided to change sides because they saw the way the battle was going. It was this point as well that the Welsh bowmen who were on the English side originally switched sides and they started attacking the English as well. So the English were getting attacked by bowmen from their front, from their rear, and they also had this second Welsh army attacking them as well. And it pretty much ended up as a massacre. The sign down below by the church said it was around 800 English soldiers were killed in this battle, but the truth is nobody really knows. I saw something online that said it was around 200, but either way, it was an absolute disaster for the English army. Some sources suggest that the dead English soldiers from the Battle of BRYN GLAS were left to rot on the battlefield for a long time after. Some sources suggest they were mutilated by Welsh women from the area, and the Welsh women who followed the army around, perhaps the wives of the soldiers. However, other people suggest that was just English propaganda from the time to try and depict the Welsh as savages, a bit of propaganda, bit of PR, fake news, that type of thing. But the sources are limited, so who really knows? Another story was that 3 Wellington trees, which I believe are these trees to my left here, they were planted at the site where the English soldiers were buried. Again, I mean, nobody knows for certain if that's true or not, but and it's also believed that the Welsh soldiers were buried down at the church there where we were earlier. One thing about the Battle of BRYN GLAS is that there's very few actual really solid historical sources for it. I mean, they can't agree 100% the numbers on either side who took part in the battle. They can't agree on the numbers who died on either side in the battle. Did Owain Glyndŵr command his forces here on the ground on the day, or was it somebody else? Again, some people say he did, some people say he didn't. Is the trees there in the background, the Wellington trees, is that the site where the English soldiers were buried? We don't know. There are even suggestions that this might not actually be the site of the Battle of BRYN GLAS, so we might just be just standing in a field. Surprising really that the Battle of BRYN GLAS is not better known across the UK, really, because all the battles between England and Scotland are celebrated and remembered. Same with the battles from the English Civil War, the battles, the Battle of Hastings, for example. But for some reason, the Battle of BRYN GLAS is not really remembered. Even within Wales, I can probably say that most Welsh people tell me about BRYN GLAS, and they'd probably, all they know about BRYN GLAS is the tunnel along the M4 by Newport that always gets clogged up, which is a shame, really. I mean, no, it's a great story. I mean, the facts are thin on the ground, which I think that's part of the reason why it makes it so interesting, because nobody really knows for certain what happened, apart from the fact that the Welsh won the battle with their bowmen, mainly, and by dividing their armies. But apart from that, not much else is agreed on. The numbers are not agreed on. Even the location is not 100% agreed on, which makes it fascinating for me, and I just don't understand why it's not taught in Welsh schools, at least, if not British schools. So after the battle, a number of the English leaders were captured. You'd imagine by sort of stereotype opinions of the day, or like from films like Braveheart, there'd just be a massacre of all the leaders, but actually Mortimer, the English commander, was captured and he was ransomed to the English king, Henry IV. Henry IV didn't want him back. So actually, in the end, Mortimer actually has a turn of events. He actually married Owain Glyndŵr's daughter. I guess Owain Glyndŵr was hoping that it would gain him some political influence, especially as Mortimer had a really strong claim on the English crown. So that concludes my visit to the Battle of PILLETH, or the Battle of BRYN GLAS. I would really recommend people paying a visit. It's really interesting. There's quite a bit to see here. There's loads of parking. The place is empty. There was another couple of years earlier. But yeah, get yourself down here, learn a bit of the history.